Last week, BK Häcken overcame their Swedish rivals Hammarby 4-2 on aggregate to win the inaugural Women's Europa Cup. Fun fact, Häcken are managed by their former star player, Elena. But the real story from the final was 19-year-old Felicia Schröder, who scored all 4 of Häcken's goals, rounding it out with a hat trick in the second leg. This didn't come out of nowhere. Schröder has been one of the most sought-after prospects in Europe for at least a year. So, who is this wonder kid? And if she does move on this summer, what are her options? I haven't done a player breakdown in a while, so if you do want me to do more of these types of videos, definitely let me know. Born in 2007, oh god, oh I'm so old. Oh my god. Born in 2007 to a Swedish mother and a Jamaican father, Schröder grew up on the island of Kalvsund in Sweden. Right before turning 16 years old, Schröder officially signed for Häcken. She made her senior debut later that month, coming on for Rosa Kafaji actually, and managed to score in her debut, a sign of things to come. Just 2 years later, she earned her first cap for the Swedish national team after just turning 18 years old and has slowly been featured more and more. And I am not lying when I say Schröder is currently the best prospect in Sweden. She is the best attacking prospect in the world, period. Now, why do I say this? She helped lead Häcken to win the Swedish league last year for the first time in 5 years by, I'm not joking, scoring 30 league goals, making her the top scorer in all of Europe in 2025. Last summer, she made the decision to sign a new contract until 2029 with Häcken despite interest abroad, making her the highest paid player in Sweden. And let me tell you, she was linked with everybody last year. Barcelona, Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, Bayern Münich, Juventus, Lyon, and VfL Wolfsburg. Kinda crazy Arsenal did not have reported interest, given Claire Wheatley's history of going shopping in Sweden for young talent. So, before getting into what clubs might look to sign her either this summer or January, for something that'll probably be close to a world record transfer fee, what type of player is Schröder? As said before, she scores a lot of goals at striker, but she is actually not that tall, only standing at reportedly 164 centimeters, aka 5'5", but it's possible she might have grown to 5'7", and this shows up in her game. For the volume of goals she does score, very rarely are any of these a header, so when thinking of buying a player like her, it is important to keep that in mind. Overall, Schröder profiles as a poacher without the aerial presence. Schröder scores so many goals because her positioning is amazing. She just knows where to be of service and where to pounce. She's also great at making runs in the box, especially towards the posts. This pairs really well with her main strength, her world-class finishing. For someone her age, Schröder is so great at keeping composure, even with pressure from the goalkeeper, making her lethal in the box. Schröder is also a great piece to have on the counter, as she is great at timing runs and is pretty fast in space. So, what are her weaknesses? Well, right now she lacks a defensive presence, which, isn't shocking for a striker, but will need to be developed for defensive set pieces. The main thing, though, her game lacks is passing ability. Again, not shocking for a poacher, but for today's modern striker and game, this is something that will need to be developed to truly send Schröder to the next level, as she doesn't really get many assists. We have seen this limitation show up when playing for Sweden. Despite getting more playing time with the team, Schröder has not been able to score her first senior team goal yet, since it is easier to shut down a pure poacher's influence on the game if they don't have the passing ability. And this obviously isn't to say she can't transition to a higher level. I mean, we all just saw her dominate Germany's Eintracht Frankfurt in the Europa Cup semifinals, but it just might take her a second to truly find her place in a new squad. With all that being said, I believe Wolfsburg would be the best fit for her career right now if she decides to move on. And there are a few reasons. 1, playing time. Part of the motivation Schröder resigned with Häcken was because she was starting at such a young age and knew it would be crucial for her development. She could look to be the instant starter at Wolfsburg, as it was reported that Dutch international Lineth Berenstein is set to leave the club in the summer. Schröder could slot right into Wolfsburg's lineup as Berenstein's replacement. Now, this isn't to say that Schröder is a similar player to Berenstein. In fact, they're actually very different strikers. However, Wolfsburg could really benefit from a more structured attack with a traditional striker like Schröder. She would be receiving service from fellow Wonder Kids, Cora Zakai and Ella Pettimores, a very exciting concept, as they are two wingers who love to attack the box. Minge and Justin Kjellund are also players who would be able to find Schröder in the box, and both have the ability to really set her free on runs. With Alexandra Popp moving on to Dortmund this summer, the only other striker on the roster would be Kessia Busi, who has been deployed more as a left winger with Wolfsburg, leaving the door wide open for Schröder. Keeping with the tradition of clubs with departing strikers, Chelsea could also be a good fit for Schröder. The club reportedly have not offered an extension to Sam Kerr, instead offering one to 34-year-old Lucy Bronze. Why? I don't know. If they are unable to keep Sam Kerr in London, Chelsea's striker situation will be Aggie Beaver-Jones, Myra Ramirez, and Luna Rebadiera, who is currently on loan with French club Fleury. This may sound like they don't need another striker, but Ramirez has been out since August with a hamstring injury that keeps suffering setbacks, and there's no telling how her form will be when she finally gets back on the pitch. Meanwhile, Chelsea could benefit from having a striker to rotate with Beaver-Jones as a change of pace. They are reportedly in the market for a striker, making attempts at Bunny Shaw. If signed, Schröder will be paired with Johanna Ritzenkanerud, Alyssa Thompson, and Lauren James at wing. All creators in the attack that like sending balls into the box, something that Schröder's game needs. I also thought about cross-city rivals Arsenal, obviously. They didn't have reported interest last year, but that could very well change. Well, actually, Stina Blackstenius just signed a 2-year extension. Schröder, a pure striker who models after Blackstenius mostly, would probably struggle to get playing time behind the rotation of Alessia Russo and Blackstenius. Arsenal, of course, I've said this before on my channel, usually struggle with integrating younger talent into the squad, and Schröder is most likely looking for somewhere where she will get some significant playing time. However, Arsenal are getting better with transitioning younger players into the squad. Smila Holmberg has been playing a lot, but as of right now, she's more of the exception than the rule. Which is why I think Tottenham might have more of a shot than Arsenal if they showed interest. Think about it. Martin Ho loves signing wonder kids from Scandinavia. It's like all I talked about in my video about what he has done with the club. It was just reported that Bethany England will not resign with Tottenham, leaving Katinka Tandberg as a starter, which makes sense and was probably the plan all along. Now, Tandberg and Schröder are pretty different strikers, with Tandberg being a more on-ball creator, so signing Schröder would actually allow Martin Ho to explore different tactics across games, and overall just give Tottenham more options in the attack and an interesting rotation. Like Wolfsburg, Tottenham's attack is young, and Schröder could easily find her place in the squad. Staying in London despite no reported interest, London City could make sense, especially if Kang wants to use it as a stepping stone to Lyon. Schröder would most likely win the starting number 9 spot next year and be the focal point of the attack. It would also give her experience at the Women's Super League level, and London City are an exciting young team that are expected to get better. Although the style of play might not favor her due to the inclination of their wingers to score, Freya Godfrey has really been the focal point of the attack this year. I don't think the club is set on a certain playstyle. Schröder could give the club more of an identity on offense, while they try and work out their defense. Now on to Spain. Barcelona obviously had interest in Schröder last year, but Real and Atletico Madrid should also be considered. Barcelona at first does make sense on paper. Obviously, they have Eva Payor as their clear-cut number 9, but the issues come with rotation at that position. Barcelona are clearly trying to not play Sama Pereiro at striker, so they could be looking to get a young backup in to develop behind Payor. However, for one, Barcelona are having money trouble as they're under heavy La Liga restrictions due to financial mismanagement on the men's side. We started to see this affect the women's team last summer with some strange departures. As covered in my Champions League previews, miraculously, Barcelona have been able to overcome their lack of depth by introducing La Masia players really well. But this leads to another doubt with Schröder. Barcelona already have a young, talented Scandinavian striker from La Masia, Martine Fenger. The 19-year-old Norwegian just recovered from an ACL tear and has been getting first-team minutes. A club will most likely have to spend around €1 million to buy Schröder out of her contract with Häcken, and Barcelona probably do not have that money right now. Real Madrid is definitely a possibility. For one, she would definitely get playing time alongside Linda Caicedo in the attack. Two, this is how Real Madrid actually operates. While they haven't really invested much in their women's side, unfortunately, they do have a history of shelling out some big money for players. They paid 200,000 euros in 2022 for Sophie Svava. Sophie Svava! Real Madrid also needs a striker, as their only pure number 9 is Alba Redondo. They have to start Caicedo and the departing Naomi Feller out of position at 9 a lot of times. I'm pretty sure they started Caroline Weir at striker at one point this season. Their city rivals Atletico are also looking for a striker. Reports suggest they're going after former club legend Jenny Hermoso. However, they don't need a striker. Sin Jensen has been their star at that position for years. And Priscilla Chinchilla, their 24-year-old Costa Rican striker, has been showing great promise. If they move on from Jensen, then going after Schröder makes a lot of sense for the club, especially if they are going to try to challenge Barcelona eventually in the future again. Schröder would make the team better point blank. They need a star alongside Luani. However, Atletico's problem is not their attack, but rather their defense. So they'll probably end up investing in center backs this summer, not strikers. Jumping back to England, even though Manchester United were reported to have interest last year, it would make no sense for them to make a move now. Elizabeth Turland has developed really well. And they just signed both Leah Schuler and Vangerheim. There isn't any room at striker. Manchester City, though, could make a lot of sense. Yes, there has been a lot of speculation over whether Bunny Shaw will leave this summer, even if Bunny stays. She could develop behind Shaw and be the number 2 option at striker, getting plenty of playing time. Manager Andre Jeglerts has already shown with Vivian Miedema that he knows how to integrate multiple strikers in a starting lineup. Man City are set to be back in the Champions League next season, and given their squad's lack of experience in the competition, it would be a good move for them to get a player who has had success in European competition. Yes, Schröder would get less playing time than a club like Wolfsburg, but having Alba Fergino, Lauren Hemp, and Carolyn giving you service is a really enticing prospect. However, if Schröder is really concerned about playing time, Liverpool could make a move. They already signed the young German starlet Vivian Endemann away from Wolfsburg somehow, signaling their intent to finish way higher next season than they will this season. Juventus, a club that has had reported interest in Schröder, also makes sense for both sides. Cristiana Girelli's future at the club is in doubt, as she is currently on loan in the NWSL. Since loaning Girelli out, Juventus have been through the ringer of starting Michaela Cambiaghi, Amelie Vanskade, Anna Capetta, and primarily Chiara Beccari, all at striker. And while they are talented players, some are not natural strikers, and the ones that aren't that statistically productive. Beccari has had a good season, but she only has 4 league goals. Juventus need a goal-minded forward like Schröder, especially with the increasing competition of Serie A. Schröder could be a player they build their team around, and she would get the playing time she wants at a high level of European football. If I was Schröder, I would stay away from Paris Saint-Germain if they ever showed interest. The club doesn't have the best history of developing young forwards, usually banishing them to the bench or sending them on loan. Lyon, of course, is one of the clubs that had interest last summer. And I hate to say it, with Hegerberg's current form in the Champions League, they might need to look at striker options for the future to pair with Katoto. How the hell do you miss that? Lyon does a good job of integrating younger players into the squad as well. However, the reason I would not expect Schröder to go to Lyon is because they already have a young talent at striker in Liana Joseph. The French 19-year-old was getting real game time with Lyon last year and scored pretty freely until tearing her ACL in October. And I doubt Lyon would threaten Liana Joseph's future with the squad, given how promising she has looked. The last team we will cover is the last team with reported interest in Schröder, Bayern Munich. And I wouldn't be too surprised if she does end up in Bavaria. They of course just sold club legend Leah Schuler to United, a player with a similar profile to Schröder. However, the reason I sort of push back on this is that Edna Imade has been great at striker for the club in Bundesliga play since being called back from loan in January. Jovana Damjanovic, although she has had some injury issues the past year, shows no signs in her playing of slowing down. And the same thing could be said about the false nine Pernilla Harder, who has been one of the better players in Europe this season. Despite their talent, I wouldn't be too surprised if Bayern looks towards the future, especially since they were interested in her. I could see them buying Schröder but then loaning her out to another Bundesliga club, something they have a history of doing with younger talent. So, where do you think Schröder will go? Or rather, where should she go? Should she actually stay at BK Häcken this year? Thank you so much for watching the video. A lot of work goes into these, so if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and I will see you guys later.